everyone, welcome back to another episode of Backstage Spotlight. Today we have the lovely Miracle Chance.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's slightly morning right now, which is fine for me. But I'm in show mode. So yeah, if I slurp some tea, please don't be offended.
Honestly, we all have those days, and it's lovely to have you on. First of all, would you like to do a little introduction to yourself, what you're doing at the moment for the people listening?
Yeah. So at the minute I am doing Fangirls, which is a new Australian teenage pop musical, which is actually the European premiere at the minute.
Ah,
Which yeah, it's pretty cool. And we're doing it at the Lyric Hammersmith, and we run until I believe it's the 25th of August.
brilliant.
Um, oh, and I'm playing Brianna.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice, nice. I was going to ask about that. So, what is your show schedule at the moment? What is a day in the life for you?
Mm. That's a good question. Well, at the minute, we've just opened, so we just had press.
Oh.
We had press night on, oh my goodness, what day is it? Tuesday night. Tuesday night. So we've had quite a hectic schedule thus far. We did around, I think it was around 6 weeks rehearsal, which is slightly unusual for a musical. Usually you might do 4 weeks. Sometimes, for example, on The Witches, we did 7 or 8. So we did about 5.5, 6 weeks rehearsal on the project. I think when you have a more new show, that tends to be what you do, just to make sure they've ironed out everything they want to and they're developing the production side of things. And so we've been doing 10 to 6 when we did that. And then we did previews, which was 12 till 10 every night. So that was pretty wild. And then, yeah, now we are on the home stretch after Tuesday night. So today I'm very lucky. It's sort of like my first real kind of day off.
And I'm
Um,
getting you on this.
yeah, it's okay. I love it. I love a good chat. So it's all good.
Good.
But yes, yes. We did 2 shows yesterday. So today I will be in the theatre for warm up at 6 p.m.
Fantastic. So, with it being a new show for, like, as you said, the European premiere, how, in the rehearsals, how workshoppy, if you could say it like that, was it? Was there new things being created, or has it just been transferred over from the previous shows that they've done?
Um, Very interesting, actually, because this one in particular, so I've done quite a lot of new work before, and it's a very different process each time, and each one is very unique in where they are in the process. So some of them I've been with since literally day dot first workshop ever, which is incredible. Sometimes you come in slightly later, you might come in just before they put the production up. But with this particular one, they had it up in Sydney. I think they did 3 productions before this. They did a tour. They did a studio performance in Sydney at the Sydney Opera House. So they had a couple of iterations and they knew how the audience was going to react to a lot of the stuff. But what they have is they've completely redesigned the set. So it's because it's a new production. It's the Lyric, co-produced by Sonia Freeman. It's a completely different sort of set design. I think it's a similar aesthetic, and they've obviously changed little tiny bits of the script as they're working along. Little lyric changes. They've added a new song. They've taken out a song. So there are little things that have changed, but it's not quite as brand new and choppy and changey as sometimes when you've been with a show since a very early workshop stage. That can be when the show is first going up to an audience ever. That is when you're getting script changes the night before. It's quite intense. But this one wasn't too bad. Just little, maybe some harmonies here and there, lyric changes. They'd already done the bulk of the change before we got into the rehearsal room, because I think they had quite a good idea of what they wanted to change. And it will be little tiny things, lighting, costume. So not too bad. But Fangirl's ethos is that they like to really change the score especially to fit the actors who are playing the parts.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, which is really lovely. So there were a few little kind of score bits maybe that were a bit different, just making sure that everyone felt comfortable.
Yeah, really nice. So, following press night, which you had at the start of the week, what has been the general feedback from audiences, press?
Mm. Wow, it's definitely been quite like the press night. It was an explosive audience,
Wow.
which was amazing. Like everyone was really up for it, which is all you can really hope for, I think, on those days. And yeah, we got very good feedback. I think people feel that it's very unique. One of the reviewers really nailed it. It was something like it's got like the quick wit of six and the heart of everything's everybody's talking about Jamie,
Mm.
and compared another show, but they really nailed it on the head. And I think, oh, they said if you're a fan of Six and Heathers, you might like this. And so I think it's great, and I think they've embraced it really well. And a lot of them have said there's not much out there like this at the minute, and
Yeah.
it does feel very new. And what's amazing about the show is that Paige, the director, Paige Battery, always says it should feel like it's in the future. So
Yes.
it's the future, and it never feels old, and it never feels, like it's not addressing that fan culture now, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I suppose it must be quite daunting opening with a premiere because you just don't know how current audiences are going to react. But to have such good feedback must be quite uplifting and confidence boosting for the rest of the run.
Yeah, it's great. It's really nerve-wracking as an actor, actually, because you really don't know how something's going to be received. And some actors, they read reviews. I try not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just like because I want to stay in the work that we're doing, and I like to hold in my head whatever bar has been set by the creatives, whatever narrative I personally have to play. And I also want to always really fully believe in what I'm doing. So I really struggle actually to read reviews for that reason, just because I sometimes feel like it can make you think of certain parts in a different way, or if they might not like something, it can dampen your spirit a little bit. And I try not to take it on. I mean, I've got better at it, but I think my general rule is actually I just would prefer to just stay with the work and the role at hand, and kind of just keep a tunnel vision and focus and just really enjoy that with my cast, and just feel really positive about what you're doing, because ultimately, actually, um, the audience is the other counterpart in that. And if they are responding, then that's kind of all that matters, really. If the people who are coming in every night are moved by a piece, or they go away feeling fantastic or younger, or seen in whatever way, then I feel like we're doing a good job.
Mm.
So sometimes I do struggle with reading reviews, and I always really envy any of my friends in the cast who they just love it. They love to read the reviews, and they're just like, "Oh, this person said this," and like they can laugh at it and stuff like that, which I think is also an incredible attribute to have. Yes, so I've seen little tiny snippets of what they've posted of reviews on the Instagram page. But yeah.
It's a really good way to put it. I think you worded that fantastically, and so important to have that outlook and do what's best for you in situations like that, because obviously everybody does receive reviews differently, and I think your outlook on it is really positive. So
Thank
that's great.
you.
Let's talk about when you arrive at the theatre. What is your pre-show ritual?
Oh, gosh. this is when you sort of find out that most actors are slightly unhinged, isn't it? I have a very different ritual actually for like every show I do. It's
Oh,
really odd. Yeah. It's funny. I I was speaking to someone about this in quite large depth. I can't even remember what it was, a couple of months ago. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, like what? Like every actor has a pre-show ritual." And da, 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 da. I was like, I don't know if I do, but like maybe it's really subtle, just a really subtle thing that I do. And so, for example, one of the ones that I knew was like a thing was that when I was in Heather's, I had quite a few little things that I didn't really notice that I was doing. And one of them was that um on the first day we opened, I used my mouthwash and the sink wasn't working or something. The nearest sink wasn't working, so I spat out the mouthwash in the boys' dressing room because it was the closest sink to the stage, and it was like I just went in and then I got into this habit of just like that was my pre-show ritual. I just every show, which is so weird. Um, but on this show, oh my goodness, I don't I what is my pre-show ritual in this show? It's funny because they don't go on straight away. So
oh,
I'm really chilled out because I've got like two numbers before I actually get on stage.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think in general, this is gonna sound odd, but I think brushing my teeth is just like a must. Like I can't go on stage until I've brushed my teeth and actually until I've used lip balm,
Oh, okay.
which is also quite weird. And I think that might be, yeah. Um, but I'm odd because I kind of prefer to be almost chucked on stage. I,
Oh,
I don't I don't like to think too much before I go on. I
like
like to like
overthinking it.
yeah, I feel like it produces a stronger performance if I just sort of casual, casual, casual. Oh, here I go on my line. I always think that's really important when you first enter the stage. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, and unless you like have to enter and it's like a big like serious scene or like silent moment or a moment where you have to hold the audience. If that was to be my opening moment, I think it would feel quite different.
Hmm.
But in terms of I remember with Heather's, it was obviously like I had to do the first line, which I always was like, oh, and so that was quite different because I did need a second. I like to like chat with them, and then I had to have like a second just before I went on, and then I would breathe in the darkness on those stairs, just have one breath before I would say my line. But if I'm playing a character that has to come into the narrative rather than protagonism, I like a protagonist character. I think it's actually really helpful energy wise to just bring something that feels almost mundane to the protagonist, and have that energy in the space that isn't too like premeditated, I guess.
Yes, yeah. That's great. So the way
Yeah.
you describe that, you would thrive at being a swing, just been thrown on a different.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do thrive in those actually. I do thrive in those situations, to be honest. I do. Yeah, weirdly, I do.
It's
Yeah.
great thing to have because it makes you unique.
Yeah, I suppose so. I always feel like when you play sort of these supporting characters though, it's often such a frantic scene that you kind of first have to enter in, or like it's a very like setting up the character scene. So you almost just want to be like in this fun flow state,
Yeah,
to kind of hold that energy. Yeah, bizarre. I don't really know why.
I
Bizarre.
love it. I love it. So how was playing Veronica in Heathers? I mean, what a role. How did you find that track?
Um, I absolutely loved it. I just absolutely loved it. Honestly, it was just a dream come true. I really hoped that I would get to play a role that had so much depth and so much nuance, not only in the acting, but in the singing as well. you know, she's singing everything. There's so many sensitive moments and much harder vocal moments, high, belty, high stakes, emotionally charged. So for me, just being able to play that journey and those nuances vocally and in an acting sense is just such a dream come true. And it was a gift because you just kept digging and finding things, and every day was just really exciting. I would go to work and I was just excited to be like, what am I gonna find today? What different thing can I add to the arc? And you know, after 6 months, I was like, oh, actually, that was really short. That was really, really short. And you know, as an actor, you're like, it's not always short. You know, you have to renew your love for roles quite often if you're doing a longer contract. Around the sort of maybe 4 month mark, there's a little renew of love, and then at the 6 month mark, a little another, give it a little bit more love. And if you're doing a year, you just got to keep doing that every 2 months and finding something that you can, you know, hook into to get you through. But yeah, with that role, it really was just a joy every day. And I think for me as an actor, I really love playing more protagonist roles because I really enjoy the push and pull of the scenes and the way that some scenes you're really driving them, and then some you're more listening to whatever the other character is bringing in, and it's just a different energy every time. And the different actors come in and out, and they're bringing completely different choices and energies, and it's very explorative. And there is a control element as well, that you see everything. You're seeing the whole development and everybody's gift that they're bringing, and that's really beautiful. And as an actor, I think I really enjoy when, if somebody's having a more sensitive day or a more emotional day, and you can really see the difference in their performance or their choice or their art that day. And that's why it was also a massive pleasure to get to witness that. And yeah, I mean, it's just a mighty role, isn't it? Like, she's a hero, as well as being completely flawed. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. What would you say your favorite song or scene to do as Veronica was?
Oh, that's a really good question. So hard because they're all so different and they all highlight such a beautiful part of her journey. Um, I used to really love, hmm, I think I love Dead Girl Walking.
Yes.
I
What a
just love
song.
I just love that. It's such a tune. It's such a tune. I just loved it every night. It was the guitar and just the sound of the band on that
Really
particular.
dig your teeth into that one.
Yeah, I loved it. And the audience is just given such permission to just have fun and just be like, what is going on? I can't believe we're witnessing this. And it's just an awesome thing, and I enjoyed it particularly for my particular voice. I felt that it lended really well to that song, and it was very comfortable for me. And I also I love 17. I think 17 is so beautiful. Such a vulnerable moment. And 17 Reprise actually is even more gorgeous when it's at the end and you're singing it with Martha. That's such a lovely moment. Um, but yeah, I mean, I Say No is, it's the moment you get to really let all those emotions out.
Mm.
And I think that's what we love. And that's
Yeah.
why we do acting. That's why we are performers, because we have all these feelings inside and all these emotions. And when we get to go on stage, no matter what role you're playing, you find those little moments where you can release something that maybe you're having a bad day, or you're thinking about something that's a wound from the past, or just anything like that. And that is the moment that you really can let it out. And I also think for the audience, that's the moment that they get to have their satisfaction with Veronica in her character arc. They're like, oh, thank goodness. You're gonna ditch JD. Thank goodness. Like, so I think it's a big sigh of relief for everyone in a sense. So yeah, it's a great moment.
That's so interesting that you said that. I was talking to Jenna Innes the other day,
Oh yeah.
playing Veronica on the
Yeah.
UK tour, and she said that her favorite moment was I Say No, just because of exactly what you said, being able to
Yes.
let it all out in that moment. And so interesting what you were saying about the audience too, because watching it, it's just the moment, isn't it? And what an amazing like privilege to be able to have sang that song in front of those audiences.
Absolutely. It's yeah, it's incredible. And I think for every actor, it's a different version of that truth as well, which is like so beautiful. Obviously, I know Jenna. We rehearsed sort of simultaneously. So when the tour went up, Jenna's cast was like a week in front of us. And so we would kind of cross paths and catch up. How are you getting on? How is it going? And it's amazing, I think, with the different Veronicas that lead that show, you get a very different show. Not in a bad way, in a really beautiful, beautiful way. And I think it is down to that. It is down to how you individually process those emotions, and get to let that out. And her journey, I mean, the show is so much about what you put in of yourself, and because she's on stage for so long, it's just it's a really interesting piece for that. And I think that's why people love it, because it allows very different versions of itself to breed, depending on, you know, where you even are on that day. Or yeah, even if yourself, if you're feeling slightly different, you get a slightly different show. And sometimes, you know, there'd be fans who come back again, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, like you've come for quite, you know, quite a few times now, and you ask them and they say, well, every time it's different, and it's slightly different. So yeah, I think that's really beautiful. But I didn't get to catch Jenna this time round, and I'm really hoping I do, because I would love to go watch it and love to go see her and support her. But yes, hopefully I will get to see her this time round.
It must be hard being a working performer and then wanting to see shows because most people love theatre and that's how they got into it by going to see musicals. And then suddenly you're in a routine where you don't have that free time and on a day off, sometimes you just don't want to go back into a theatre. Like, how do you balance the work-life balance being a performer?
Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. Like, it is really hard if you've got one day off. And a lot also, most shows go Monday to Saturday,
Yeah.
and might have like a Sunday off. And a lot of shows don't do Sunday shows. They
Mm,
don't.
yeah.
So you're very limited. I mean, there are some, of course, but you are limited if you've got a friend and they're doing this and it's a limited run, and it's like, oh gosh, you end up missing so much amazing theatre, and going to support your friends, which sucks. I think what's interesting for actors in theatre is that you kind of have almost like a shorter work day, because you most days, unless you're doing two shows, you're arriving at that theatre at 6, and
Mm.
on the two-show day it's about 1. So you are getting, like, you know, quite a good amount of your day, um but then you're working 6 days a week, not 5. So you kind of, you trade it in, essentially. You trade in that extra day for almost like a shorter work day, something you're more passionate about. But it is really difficult if you're in a very exhausting show, something very high energy. It can be hard to get up in the morning and get up early, like, you know, and be productive. It's really difficult. And I think I'm working with a few graduates actually in this cast, which is amazing. So it's 3 of the uh, people in the cast. It's their professional debut. And I was talking to one of them, and they were like, I just didn't think it was going to be this exhausting. Like, I didn't know. I'm okay with it, but like, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah. And I think it's that thing of being able to find some some other reason on your days where you might only have to be at the theatre at 6 to wake up slightly earlier, plan little things so that you are up and your brain is working and moving and you move your body. I like to go in summer, I like to go swimming outside in the Lido as much as I can, just to keep my mind and my body active, and also just to take in nature, because you tend to become a bit of a night owl. You know?
Always
And
inside as well.
what's that? Sorry?
Always inside as well, being in the theatre.
Always inside, always in the dark. And then I like to have other separate projects as well, creative projects, just to keep my brain away from the piece that I'm doing, because I find that it otherwise becomes really all consuming. And it can just be the case of like, you could just wake up on the day quite late, watch TV, go to work. I'm not saying I don't do that some days, but let's face it, we all do. But also it's like, no, I need to have something else to focus on. Just little things, just making myself a little schedule, using my brain, still that creative brain, instead of just being in the performative brain every week. It's really important to have that creative brain too. So yeah, and then friends, oh gosh, I mean, I will take whatever time. I mean, it's very rare to be like, hey, are you free on this day between da 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 da? And if they are, it's amazing. But I've just come out of quite a long streak of working, which I feel very fortunate for. But I was in Bristol just before this job. So a lot of my friends, I haven't seen them since before Christmas.
Mm.
Like which is so sad. But yeah, I haven't seen them since before Christmas. Because unless I've caught them in rehearsals, maybe for a dinner after rehearsals, if they were around. Yeah, I went on holiday, and then the year just gets away with you, and it's like, oh gosh, it's sad. But actually, you've reminded me I need to make more of an effort to scheduling.
And you're like, I'm not a bad friend, I'm just busy.
I know, it's you feel so awful, honestly. Yeah, yeah, totally.
It's hard, it's hard. But you know, when you do what you love as a job, you have to make those sacrifices, and missing out on family events and stuff like that is just the world of a performer.
It really is. And sometimes if you think about it too hard, you actually like it's quite unbelievable that that's the sacrifice we make. I mean, I think people have got a lot better with allowing people to go to weddings, which is a joy, and amazing. But yeah, I think before, I think it's only just starting now. And I think before it was like, oh, a wedding? No, you can't go to, you can't go to a wedding. Like, but I want to see joyous life events.
Brilliant.
Uh,
So what do you think's on the horizon for you? If you could have a dream job in the future, what would it be? Something new or something like a classic?
That's a good question.
Or even writing your own stuff? Like what kind of things would you like to do in the future?
That's a great question. My brain moves like a million, what's it, a million times an hour or a million speed? I don't know speed. I'm like a million per hour. Well, that's not a sentence. Um, but yeah, I personally, I love to do new work.
Yeah.
I find that really fulfilling. Creating and originating roles is where I love to be as an actor. I'm sure a lot of actors love that as well. Um, but yeah, I think that's where I thrive. I like to have a lot of creative input in that way. So maybe a future role that hasn't existed is out there for me. I would love to do something really dark, maybe a bit more serious, maybe have another shot at doing a protagonist role again, because that's where I really thrive and enjoy to use my brain, and my craft. And yeah, something a bit more serious. But I also would love to do something really poppy, um, rather than maybe like a classic MT sound or rock. That's my favorite preferred vocal place to be. And yeah, I would love if they could do a really crazy, kooky revival of Funny Girl as well. I would like to do Funny.
Ooh, that would
I would love to play that role. but make it real crazy. Um, yeah, I would love to play Fanny. That definitely feel like that would be cool for me. I'd love to do Sally Bowles also.
Wow, a good role.
Epic role. Epic role. Let's see. Hopefully one day can do that. That would be cool. But also for me, actually, and it's great that you brought it up. I'm actually in a mindset right now where I'm looking forward to writing again and writing something that feels really true to me and hopefully can resonate with some people out there. And also because I have such a vision in my head of like a piece stylistically. And I'd love to give myself that opportunity to be able to create that and be part of that process and be on the other side of the table, maybe even, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would star in it, who knows? Quite fun. But also really interesting to me to be on that other side and work with actors in that way and learn how that feels, you know, and how that comes across and how do you as an actor in a rehearsal room, you know, what do you need? You think as an actor, what do I need? What's the best way for a director to work with me or so and so to work with me, and then actually to go on the other side of the table and to go, okay, wow, what do I need from the actor? How do I get that? Well, it must be difficult actually if you're creative, you know, in that sense, and just to understand it all, really.
How fascinating that would be. Imagine you create your own piece and you are on the other side of that table. How rewarding that would feel. It just
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I think so. I think so. I think ultimately you can do other people's work and enjoy it and love it. But if you have any inkling in your brain that you might enjoy creating something completely out of your own mind, I think that has to be followed. I did write a musical in lockdown with a friend. We put it on at the Brighton Fringe a couple of years ago, but it was very much uh, a collaboration between us, and it was a pretty wacky show. Like it was like definitely a lockdown show, you know. It was fun and it had a heart and it was great. And I loved the process and I learned so much from it and I really enjoyed it. It was it's very stressful creating anything because actually when someone judges not just your performance but your creativity,
Yeah.
it's a step further, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I feel sick. I feel
Yeah.
actually sick. Yeah. So but now obviously I'm a further on in my career and in my life, and I would love to create something from the place I'm at now.
Yeah. Well, the world's your oyster. Who knows what will happen in the future? I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see you do something like that. Before we wrap this podcast up, the last question that I always ask all of my guests is if you could have someone to come on this podcast and impart their knowledge, and I'll reach out to them. If you were to nominate someone, who would that be?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope they haven't already been on the podcast. I think somebody who would be amazing is so you'll get quite a different podcast from this incredible, iconic
Love.
lady. But I feel, and whether she would say yes is another question. But I hope that she would because she's just completely iconic, and I'm bewitched and bewildered by this woman since the day I met her. Her name is Julie Armstrong. I did The Witches with her.
Yeah.
She is a musical theatre veteran. She has been in the original cast of pretty much everything and was in theatre in the 80s.
Wow.
She's got so many stories and she's such a strong woman. And I just feel like everybody needs a slice of Julie Armstrong in their life. Like, honestly, it's just completely different flavor of, I think, what we know the industry to be now.
Yeah.
And she once got interviewed by a book or something. And she's like, I've never read it. I've never read it. She's just really funny. She's just really sassy and funny. She's like, I never read it. I couldn't be bothered. But that's precisely why everyone I think, needs to hear from her because she's actually a piece of history.
Yeah,
And yeah, she's an amazing woman.
I'll definitely reach out. That sounds fantastic. It's been an amazing episode. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you've
Thank
enjoyed chatting. And thank you to everyone listening. We'll
thank you.
see you later. See you next week.